Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a great and wonderful day. And it seems we're going to be going off of the great Fauci debacle, where he's pretty much saying, like, the COVID rules and stuff that you guys had to stay at home and not go outside for like a whole year because of all that great stuff. Of course, we end up comes out finding out that a lot of it was a lie. He was making up things up, and seems he's going to be arrested and stuff like that, or at least what Major Taylor Greene says. Again. I think anybody that was forced to take this COVID vaccine due to their work should be paid some kind of money for the rest of their lives for any medical problems that they receive. Fauci should be in jail for indefinite amount of period of time for the rest of his life. And I think all of these drug companies should be sued into oblivion because, if this is all turns out to be true, well, guess what? I think this whole debacle is a big thing. It's a good thing I didn't take that good jab because, the jab kills, apparently. So what we have here is that from the Daily Mail saying, revealed, Dr. Anthony Fauci confesses he made up COVID rules, including 6 feet, social distancing, and masking kids. Bombshell testimony from Dr. Anthony Fauci reveals he made up the 6-foot social distancing rule and other measures to protect Americans from COVID. Yeah, protect, right. Republicans put out the full transcript of their sit-down interview with Fauci from January, just days before his highly anticipated public testimony on Monday. They plan to grill him about COVID restrictions he put in place that he admitted didn't do much to slow the spread of the virus. Kids learning loss and social setbacks have been well documented, with one National Institute of Health study calling the impact of mask use on students' literacy and learning very negative. And the impacts from social distancing cause depression, generalized anxiety, acute stress, and intrusive thoughts, another NIH study found. Speaking to counsel on behalf of the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic earlier this year, Fauci told Republicans that the 6-foot social distancing rule sort of disappeared and that he did not recall how it came about. I don't recall. It just sort of disappeared, he said, according to committee transcripts when he pressed on how the rule came about. He added he was not aware of the studies that supported the social distancing, conceding that such studies would be very difficult to do. In addition to not recalling any evidence supporting social distancing, Fauci told the committee counsel that he didn't remember anything to support that masking kids would prevent COVID. Again, he's lying here. He is absolutely 100% lying because we all know that he knew a lot more than what he says to believe. And he's trying to prevent himself from going to jail, which he should probably be sent to jail for his foreseeable future. Says, I might have you responded before adding it, but I don't recall specifically that I did. The pandemic patriarch also testified that he had not followed any studies after the fact regarding the impacts that forced mask wearing had on children, of which there have been many. Yes, I may believe kids had suffered significant learning problems and all that stuff. A lot of depression, as the story goes on to say. So, Fauci, I think you should probably be open up to immense ridicule here and more. Don't worry, guys. We have a lot more coming up here because I think everybody needs to get to see the actual destruction of what this man has done. And his answer was ironic COVID pun. I still think that's up in the air. Fauci said whether masking kids was a solid way to prevent transmission. It was not a solid way. It was not a solid way anything regardless. And you have people wanting to mask people during sporting events where they were doing sports, which is incredibly stupid, but I digress. I think people have made conspiracy experts from it, he said, adding it could be a lab leak. So I think that in and of itself isn't inherently a conspiracy theory, but some people spin off things from that are kind of crazy. Right. Because there isn't a lot of evidence about the coronavirus and all the insane stuff that's been going on. We have this here that from the New York Post saying, Fauci testifies on COVID-19 origins, U.S. response live updates. Says Dr. Anthony Fauci, former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, was grilled by House representatives on Monday about the U.S. COVID response, has appeared before a subcommittee investigating the origins of the virus. So, of course, they're going to say far-right Representative Taylor Greene exploded during her line of questioning over reports that social distancing mandates approved by Dr. Anthony Fauci had no scientific basis. You're not a doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes, she said after referencing the reports, throwing the subcommittee into disarray over whether she had violated hearing rules preventing members from making personal attacks. Again, I don't care about actual personal attacks here, honestly, at this point in time. When it comes down to this man, he has destroyed many, many people's lives, and in my personal opinion, I don't think these things have gone well. And we have this here from Libby Evans saying they knew the vaccine waned in efficacy and kept firing people for not taking it away. Fauci admits it. Here we go.
The vaccine saved millions of lives, and I want to thank you for your support and engagement on that. However, despite statements to the contrary, it did not stop transmission of the virus. Did the COVID vaccine stop transmission of the virus?
That is a complicated issue because in the beginning, the first iteration of the vaccines did have an effect, not 100%, not a high effect. They did prevent infection and subsequently, obviously, transmission. However, it's important to point out something that we did not know early on that became evident as the months went by, is that the durability of protection against infection and hence transmission was relatively limited, whereas the duration of protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and deaths was more prolonged. We did not know that in the beginning. In the beginning, it was felt that, in fact, it did prevent infection and thus transmission, but that was proven as time went by to not be a durable effect.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of the Democrats, a lot of the people were going out and saying, "Oh, well, if you get the actual COVID vaccine, oh, you'll be cured. You won't get the you won't get the disease, or you won't get the COVID." And unfortunately, I know people in my family, in my household that have gotten the actual COVID twice after getting the vaccine. So obviously, it didn't seem to work all too well. Now, did it? So again, a lot of people were pushing this, and you were forcing people to take this called vaccine. Because, of course, a lot of these companies wouldn't allow people to keep their job, if you didn't get the jab.
Definitely had a positive effect for many people, especially those that were vulnerable. But we knew from the trials that people that got vaccinated still were subject to getting COVID. So was the COVID vaccine 100% effective?
I don't believe any vaccine is 100% effective.
That's the problem. You guys were going out and saying that it was 100% effective. I don't know where you're going with this, but you lied to the people. Of course, we should know that no vaccine should be 100% effective, but it was so negligibly effective that it just didn't do anything. We have this here from Ed Wokeness, going on to say this here, that Fauci warns the American public against listening to podcasts, memes, or to the conspiracy theorists. He blames the unvaccinated for around 200,000 to 300 additional deaths.
Listen to America's brightest and best doctors and scientists, or instead listen to podcasters, conspiracy theorists, and unhinged Facebook memes?
No, listening to people who you've just described is going to do nothing but harm people because they will deprive themselves of life-saving interventions, which has happened. And some have done studies. Peter Hotez has done an analysis of this and shows that in people who refuse to get vaccinated for any variety of reasons, probably responsible for an additional 200,000 to 300,000 deaths in this country.
Thank you, sir, and your entire team for saving lives in this country. And
saving lives. Yeah, I don't know about that, about saving lives. And I don't think the unvaccinated caused any of this. I think it's due to your actual amount of negligence that caused more deaths than anything, and a lot of horrible policies and planning from the actual governors themselves that caused more deaths than anything else. And we have this here from Glenn Greenwald saying this exchange alone proves what a pathological liar Fauci is. 1 week after receiving emails from top epidemiologists arguing the virus was likely a lab leak, Fauci caused a virtual ban on questioning COVID's origin. But he's a liberal folk hero, so only Joe B can raise this.
Do you agree that there was a push to downplay the lab leak theory?
Not on my part.
Really?
Really?
Wow.
Wow.
I think most of the country would find that amazing. I still got 11 seconds.
Well, look at the facts. I've kept an open mind throughout the entire process.
All right. I yield back.
And we all know that he lies. Fauci lies consistently, and he was going to other people's houses to try to convince them to get the vaccine and stuff like that. So again, it's a constant thing with this guy. We have more here from Texas Lindsay going on to say that Fauci now blames CDC for the 6 feet apart social distancing guidance and says it didn't come from him.
CDC. The CDC was responsible for those kinds of guidelines for schools, not me. So when I said that it just appeared, it appeared. Was there any science behind it? What I meant by no science behind it is that there wasn't a controlled trial that said compare 6 foot with 3 feet with 10 feet. So there wasn't that scientific evaluation of it.
Fauci, we all know that the CDC was getting direct orders from you specifically on why this was being put out. You were saying that to have social distancing in the first place. You're lying.
I believe the CDC used for their reason to say 6 feet is that studies years ago showed that when you're dealing with droplets, which at the time that the CDC made that recommendation, it was felt that the transmission was primarily through droplet, not aerosol, which is incorrect because we know now aerosol does play a role. That's the reason why they did it. It had little to do with me since I didn't make the recommendation.
And now we have this from Greg Price here saying, Dr. Fauci says Republicans twisted his words when he says 6 feet of social distancing lacked scientific basis and just appeared. By saying there was no science behind it, I mean there was no clinical trial that proved that. We have this from Zero Hedge saying, we very much hope Anthony Fauci will discuss this email referencing a COVID as a bioweapon. And he goes on to say here that Chedros and Brenner have apparently gone into conclave. They need to decide today, in my view. If they do prevaricate, I would appreciate a call with you later tonight or tomorrow to think that we might take forward. Meanwhile, it says coronavirus contains HIV insurgents stoking fears over an artificially created bioweapon. And that's what's been shown here. And all that great stuff. So, yeah, it's not looking too great here. And this is from Colin Rugg saying, just in Marjorie Taylor Greene calls for the imprisonment of Mr. Fauci to his face as he cites a new report where NIH scientists made over $700 million on COVID royalties. NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers, a fact that's been hidden. Is it right for scientists and doctors getting paid by the American people, government taxpayer paychecks, to get patents where they're paid millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in royalty fees? Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that? Mr. Fauci's cause, you're not a doctor, you're a Fauci, Mr. Fauci, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked and he belongs in prison. And I 100% agree with this. So, yeah, it doesn't seem to be all too great by Mr. Fauci here. Now, I hope he does get charged by some type of matter of all this stuff, because he's been caught lying, he's been caught knowing things that were as a bioweapon and all that stuff, and it's quite apparent. I think that the American people were lied to about the actual vaccine here. I think it was rushed and pushed out to the American people without proper testing. And I don't see how any of the remote this was even good in the first place. And the fact that we had companies where we couldn't have Pfizer and these other companies couldn't be sued by the American people after, deaths and stuff like that was also quite concerning in itself. So I don't know about you guys, but I think Fauci might face prison, but I would like to see him indicted and actually face charges, because right now all this is, as what many Republicans do, is they talk but do no action. I'm seeing him in these committees and of going against these charges multiple times, but I don't see him in jail. So unless you Republicans actually do something and send him to jail, I think all of you guys are just speaking and opening your mouth, but not actually doing anything at all. So that's it for the video, guys. Like, share. As always, take care, my friends.
I'm discussing about what I see in public. Even people closest to us can't be trusted, because it's algorithmic disease, the social media.